Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. Over this side is Steve Hall, and over that side is...
I'm a superhero now. Can you see my cape?
Got a cape.
Yeah, it's a cape. It's not that cool though. It's a cape for old people. It is an electrical blanket to warm my back because I have back pain.
Yeah, we're just speaking off air, and Pascal messaged me, I don't know at what time this morning, like right
6 in the morning.
First thing in the morning, how his back has gone. And for any of our long-time listeners, you'll know Pascal's had kind of chronic back issues and actually had an incredibly good run of late. And then it kind of got tweaked a bit this week, and it was quite a lot better yesterday. And Pascal rested it because we have a job filming across this weekend, so lots of volume to be done in the gym, even though it's very sub-max. And your back went, didn't it?
It is awful, but it isn't the same thing. I think. It's at least not in that area. It's more like on the right side of my lats. I can't really locate where it's coming from because it's just like. You know that sometimes that you think the pain is somewhere else where it actually is stemming from. So it could very well be that it's more like coming from the erectors. I don't know, lower traps. I have no idea really.
Does it stem? You have a slight back, like your back's not a normal back, is it? There's something.
I have morbus Scheuermann. So on English it's called Scheuermann's disease. So there's either that you have a unnormal kyphosis or lordosis, right? Where the spine is like an S-curve, right? As many people know. If in some extents you have like a kyphosis, right? Where the S-curve isn't like as bent, and sometimes you have a lordosis, right, where it's very much bent. So for me personally, and Scheuermann's disease can be quite severe. Most of the time it hits males in their adolescence years or in their puberty or so, right? And if it's not detected there, it can actually never be reversed because it's like the cartilage is then being hardened throughout the adolescence years, and then you can't really fix it if you don't take care of that. My case is a mild case, so that's why I have not really a curvy upper back. It's more so like straight, which is crazy if you really think about it, right? If I do the lat spread, and you look at my back straight, right? And I try to really round my upper back. It's not really that rounded, such as with other people, right? And that this is something that I have, but I don't think that many things stem from that because it's really just a mild thing, and I've never noticed it before. It was always like underneath it all, and by an X-ray, it was once detected, just by accident. And most of the time, it is diagnosed by accident. And if you're lucky, then people will notice, or the doctor will notice that while you are in puberty, and then you can fix it and take care of it. If not, then you have to live with that. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how many of the listeners have got a similar thing, or I wondered if it stemmed from that because I knew you had that, but I don't know. I think it's probably actually kind of frustrating that it's something. I don't know. Is it comforting that it's something different, or is it frustrating because it's something different?
I don't know. I mean, thing is, it would be always a little bit of a relief when you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that it is or stems from that. Maybe it contributes a little bit, but I don't think that this is the actual cause for it. I think it's just like I went into a deficit, did the same amount of back frequency and volume, kind of. So week 1 and week 2, but it seems like it was already way too much for my back to handle. And this is something that I told you, right? At the beginning of this week, I think it was like, mate, it's crazy. My MRV for the back, or my MEV to MRV, is completely changed when I'm entering a deficit. And this is something I noticed in the past as well. I wasn't ever aware of truly aware of that. I always thought but I don't know, maybe you're just like overall fatigued or so, right? But that just like this time was just such a proof that my back MRV at least, or MEV to MRV, adjusts so narrowly and comes down so drastically because I simply can't recover from that. And ever since the beginning of this week, it was a little bit uncomfortable. At first it was the left side, now it's the right side, which is kind of weird, but it just shows that the entire back is a little bit under too much tension then.
And do you know how many sets do you know how many sets you started with on back for your mesocycle?
Wait a second, I can bring that up in just a second.
It's always interesting. People ask me quite a bit on Instagram, like, how many sets are you doing? And I'm like, I actually, because I auto-regulate it, I don't have a tally in my head
12.
until I count it all.
12.
Okay, you start off with 12. That's not like, for back particularly, that's not a ton of volume.
And then week number 2 is already 15 sets. But I mean, from 12 to 15, it's not that crazy of a jump where you're just thinking like, oh shit, you're not going wild or so, especially when the area is reasonable still. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a little bit unfortunate timing due to the recording we are supposed to do on the weekend. And I was just like yesterday, because at the beginning of the week, my back was was flaring up. And then I took an additional rest day just to be on the safe side so that on the weekend I'm ready. And then yesterday evening, I took Eddie like, yeah, my back is finally feeling fine again. How fortunate that is, so that I'm ready for the weekend, right? And then
you jinxed yourself.
Yeah, and here in the morning, snap. And I couldn't even move, right? It was just like a massive contraction in my back musculature. And I was just standing there, and I dragging my ass up into my apartment. And the thing is, Katie was still asleep. She woke up because she heard me breathing that heavily, and she thought that I was, I don't know, crashing with my, I crashed with my motorbike and dragged my ass back home again, right? And she came out like, "Is everything all right with you?" Blah, blah, blah. And it's just so unfortunate because my flight is going today, and I can't go to I'm going to see a doctor, but this is my mother-in-law. She's not an orthopedic who could take care of that maybe a little bit differently. But yeah, it is what it is now. I mean,
I will say it's incredible how reassuring it is when you do see someone. They don't have to necessarily be a specialist, but talking to someone who you know kind of knows at least a little bit. They certainly know more than you and more than anyone else you know. And to be able to contact that person and the kind of mental relief you get when they're like, okay, I know at least this isn't anything that's like life-threatening, or you're not going to do yourself any damage if you do this. Because, sometimes you just feel lost, especially with healthcare. Yeah. I just feel like it's not a quick turnaround.
Absolutely. And the additionally unfortunate thing is that I just started my contest prep, and I'm in such a good momentum. Everything is to the T, and I'm just like, it's going that well, right? And then all of a sudden, such an injury. I couldn't train today, not even the lower body, because it just took me out completely, right? And now I'm even considering, okay, I have so much time. Should I just now go back to maintenance just for another week and then go back into a deficit? Because we just discussed my plan when it comes to the overall contest prep, because you brought up some concerns and said like, okay, that seems like a weird plan that you're already starting a prep now. What's the rationale behind that? And I told you that I wanted to give myself some options of maintenance phases when they are actually needed, and a prolonged maintenance in between when I have the time for it. Because I've never been to stage level conditionings, and what I want to accomplish is like a crazy level of conditioning. And thus I wanted to buy myself enough time, or give myself enough time, with the opportunity though to still give me some breaks in between, so that it becomes more and more realistic of actually getting there. And maybe I just have to bite in the apple and now be like, okay, shit, I'm in a momentum now, but is it really good to stay in a deficit now? Especially because I take it very aggressively at the beginning, and now I can't train, and I'm not in the midst of a contest prep where it's like kind of mandatory to stay in the deficit. I could even take like just a week to make it better and then go back to things. I don't know. I'm a little bit emotionally biased, of course, right now, where it's like I want to just keep pushing, but at the same time, the objective coach in me says like, okay, is this what you would tell a client? Probably not. I mean,
this actually it's so interesting because it comes down to, we discussed, and there's always hindsight and there's hindsight bias and you never know exactly why, but kind of we discussed, I think a few weeks ago, where you were thinking, I might deload and then take like another maintenance week as like a short primer phase, or maybe even a couple. And if you'd done that, would this have happened? And like, would that have prevented it happening? It's kind of like...
So the initial plan was that I'm starting my diet on the 25th. So
of December?
No, November.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it would have been here next week, right?
Right. Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. But this is, I think it also sent this completely the psychological aspect, because like I've been messaging you and being like, oh, what if I deload a bit early and I can maybe skip a week of my maintenance period, because no one likes doing a maintenance. Like, it's not fun, apart from when you're like stopping dieting and you get to have extended maintenance, and I don't know, you're just that sort of person that enjoys that. But most people are like, it's kind of like taking your medicine, like taking a deload. In many ways, you're not kind of like, oh, this is something I really enjoy. It's kind of like, oh, you're doing it because you have to. But quite often when you take, I don't know, it might even be a diet break or a maintenance primer phase, you're not doing it because you're like, oh, I couldn't possibly keep training with high volume. It's more of a case of, I'm taking this as security because I can't check certain things, whether or not they're getting injured or they could get injured down the line. It's like a security measure for future. And I guess, when such an injury, like you haven't really been injured your entire off season, and I haven't either. So this happening to you is kind of a bit of a signal to me, at least, where I'm like, okay, Steve, like actually just take your medicine, take the deloading, take the maintenance, and don't try and like hurry up a process that can't be hurried. Be a good athlete in that sense. And I guess this is where sometimes being coached helps, because I know for a fact a lot of my clients would not be sticking to their deloads, their maintenance periods, if I wasn't making them do it. And then they're so thankful when that happens. And if we don't do it, it's kind of like, damn it.
Yeah. No, you're bringing up a good point, and that is like, I mean, now in that situation, it's a little bit not just unfortunate, but it was like, okay, what should I do now? All right, I want to keep going. I am already the first 2 weeks now. Have been like very, very good. I'm on a run, and I'm afraid, of course, now to interrupt that and go back again to a maintenance phase, or just maintenance for like 1 or 2 weeks and then go back into a cutting phase. And maybe it's a little bit more of a hassle then, right? And it's like, okay, what are the pros? What are the cons? Right now, though, it's always what we are promoting. And I would be quite a hypocrite if I'm then kind of not doing what I'm actually then preaching and saying like, okay, when you're injured, it's the perfect time to then take a maintenance phase. And this is exactly what I planned these phases in, and planned this length of a prep info, that I have plenty of time to actually then give myself the time for weeks or days like these.
Yeah, I think it was when we spoke, when you explained your plan to me, it became obvious that your plan was basically the same as mine, yet I'd put in the maintenance period, whereas you were like, I ideally will have that, but at the moment it's just, I'm starting prep, and if I have time, I have time. Whereas obviously, like you said, you've never been to the stage conditions, so you're not sure how that journey is going to go. Whereas I guess I can be a bit more assertive and confident that, I don't know, I've been there, although I've been there for years now. So I've kind of been there, and I want to get leaner. And I guess on that note, it was exciting to see Worlds. I guess that was the weekend just gone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
WMBF Worlds. And we only had one client there, which was Charlie Barkley, who did fantastic to get there because he had a very long, very difficult prep, lost a lot of weight. So he didn't place, unfortunately, but he had the time of his life. And that was cool to see. But I don't know if you want to speak to any of the conditioning that and what it inspired. It really inspires me. Yeah. And in some ways, I was like, part of me is like, I just want to be able to one day maybe get to Worlds. Yeah. And if I could do that, that's like, that'd be amazing, and just stand and belong. But even that's going to be hard. Yeah.
I mean, it is always like surprising what some people bring to stage, naturals, where it's like, holy fuck. I mean, take a look at the competitors that Samo and also Jeff Alberts went against. Holy crap. I mean, you're getting scared when it comes to that. And of course, shout out also to Brad, to our man who got second time bantam world champion. So mega congratulations to him. And the level of conditioning he's bringing to stage is crazy as well. So this time also with his glutes, it was crazy. And I think that, yeah, he succeeded all the way through. And that is, of course, getting the title, but also just like beating his last time's performance. And yeah, I mean, it was crazy, but also sometimes you look at that and look at some competitors and you're just thinking like, okay, I know that you've done a lot for actually getting there, and I don't want to actually talk down on them or kind of, I don't know, patronize them or so, because it has to be respected. They are the ones who made it to stage. I never did it to stage, or I haven't made it to stage so far. So who am I then to actually bring that up? But sometimes you're just wondering, okay, what are these guys doing there? All right. Just to give a little bit of a different perspective on things. So, and I just bring that one up because you are then saying like, okay, I would love to go to Worlds, but I'm uncertain whether I can achieve that. And then I think it's always like, okay, I think that you have the potential, but it's also always where you are then qualifying for Worlds, right? And let's be real, UK has one of the strongest competitors there are, and the natural bodybuilding scene is crazy good, and thus, of course, qualifying for Worlds is much, much harder than qualifying somewhere else for Worlds.
Yeah, I think it came to a bit of a shock for me and Charlie, because I don't think either of us really thought about it, in that pretty sure he came third in the WMBF Germany show, which qualified him for Worlds, which is awesome. And I think he was the only men's physique competitor from Germany, so he represented Germany. Whereas, if I came third in the UK, I don't think I get a pass, and that's at the international finals. I have to qualify for the finals, and then I have to qualify at the international finals and come, I don't know, in the top 2, and then I think maybe they pick, if you're good enough standard in the top 3, then you get taken, but if you're not, then you don't, because I know Andrew Chappelle won the middleweights in the internationals, in the UK internationals, but he went WMBF Pro at the UK show. I guess they have the power to be able to do that for him. So he went straight into WMBF Pro middleweights, which made complete sense. He came third in that. So, and like somewhat like you get shocked, because I guess from our perspective, there's people who share their journey really well, and we see them as like, I don't know, maybe a higher standard than maybe they even are. Like Jeff Alberts, not to at all to take anything away from the man. Like, he's fantastic physique and he's done incredibly well in his whole natural bodybuilding career. But I think people are shocked when they are like, oh, he didn't come in the top 5. Wow. Like, that's how competitive it's getting. But yeah, so Andrew came there, and then Gerard, who was the middleweight, he came second. He went to WMBF Worlds, and he represented the UK at second place, and he won the middleweights. He won the overall, which was really cool to see, because I competed against him in 2017, and I think he came third that year. Third at international, the UK final. So anyway, that might not have made a lot of sense to a lot of people, but it was just amazing to see. It's cool to see someone like Gerard, who's been competing years, and he invested a lot of time into his off season to then come back. And this season, I think he didn't even, I'm not sure if he won his qualifier even to go to the UK finals. And then he came second at the UK finals, and then he went to Worlds and he won the overall at Worlds. So it's kind of like, you think about that, it's also who turns up on the day, and there's an element of luck involved. But the people who, if you consist, you put in the effort, if you've got some talent there, I think you can go far. But anyway,
absolutely.
It definitely lit a fire under me, like watching people there and being in New York.
For me too, the entire season, like watching people compete, not just at the world stage, but also the nationals and all that kind of stuff, and having clients compete. It just drives me then to like, oh yeah, I want to get started as well. And that is why it's also a little bit of a stab in my heart to then be like, oh shit, do I really want to take a break already now, 2 weeks or in, just because I have to, because I can't train? Because what's the point in being in a deficit when you can't train? Because then you're losing muscle mass, very, very likely. And do you want to prep when you're losing muscle mass and you actually have the time? Rather reconsider and then take it a little bit more aggressively. And if you have then to push, then pushing is probably a better idea than being in a deficit when you can't train at all. Absolutely.
And that's part of my consideration is, I think, I don't know, still my issue of the nausea and fatigue is still there, and it's definitely limited my training volume. And probably my intensity a bit as well, because I feel a bit nauseous sometimes during my sessions, especially legs. Like, it's hard enough when you're feeling bloated and a bit nauseous. Like, you feel that way, you feel a bit nauseous when you're pushing to failure anyway on like a squat or something. So it was hard. I still hit some PRs. I still think I've made some progress. But having actually, it's really interesting, because for the listeners, I've been to the GP once. They did tests. I've had blood tests at home, so I know it's nothing kind of really serious. But a number of people reached out to me, even GPs. I think I had 3 GPs reach out to me and were like, have you considered GERD or acid reflux as being an issue? And I didn't think it was that, because I've not had any acid reflux like that I know about. But then someone contacted me yesterday and was like, the symptoms you're talking about are exactly the same as mine. And apparently they're quite common in bodybuilders who overeat, where basically all the acid reflux happens in the night. So that would make sense, because it's disrupting my sleep. And today I was like sleeping and I woke up and I was like, actually, I do feel like I've got a bit of a metallic taste in my mouth. And I don't know if that's like placebo, because now I'm thinking I should have like acid coming up. But now I'm looking into it. I'm like, maybe it is. So I've just started on a course of what they called omeprazole. Some acid reflux medication, but it takes apparently like 3 days to potentially kick in, up to 2 weeks, and I'm seeing the GP next week. But basically what I'm saying is I have to get that sorted out, because that's probably just, it's basically being injured, because I just have a problem. And it would make sense, and it would give me a bit of, I hate it, but it would give me a bit of like a kick up the backside in a good way, because I haven't just been being a bitch about not being able to eat. Like, this is legitimately, if that was like a problem, I could have stomach ulcers. I could have something really wrong. I don't know. It could be GERD. Hopefully it's just acid reflux and I can sort it quite like invasively, but I could need surgery. I could need an operation. It could call off my contest prep. I just don't know. So fingers crossed it doesn't. I would hate that. That would actually crush me, but we'll have to see. So yeah, it's kind of, we ended on a really negative note on our updates.
We are. What we wanted to say is that we are wrecks.
I guess at least it's commonly said. I don't know if it's commonly said, but I don't think many people realize how many people plan to go to stage and actually start a prep and they end up quitting. You've said it before, and it's so many. I don't even realize, because you kind of forget the people that are like, oh yeah, I'm starting my prep 2020. And then like 4 months later, it's like, what's going on? Oh, I'm in my off season. It's like, oh, okay. You don't know what happened. There could be really good reasons like we might have, or it could just be, it wasn't the right time. So yeah, getting to stage in itself, like you said, is a big achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we get to questions?
Yeah.
Because we once again have so many.
Let me try and identify the supporters. So we have Andrew Potacek. Is that how you said it? That is right?
I think so, yeah. But I have still no idea. So he never corrected us, so I assume that it's good.
We just call him the vein master or the...
Something like that.
He said, how beneficial is using slow-release protein at night? E.g., I use cottage cheese for a mislocation protein, but would any good protein source be as effective?
I think Jorn Tromelin has looked into that and also done an article about that. Whereas it may seem plausible to do that, but I think that the benefits are negligible, or like there's no significant difference, because if you really think about it, you're not going to bed like fasted. You probably still have food from the entire day sitting in your digestive tract being consumed, or at least like digested throughout the night. It's the same when it comes to something like the what's it called again? The refractory period. That never makes sense to me when it comes to protein, because you're not just eating protein the entire day, right? And food sitting in your digestive tract for much, much longer, sometimes even days, until it's then being released again. So in that case, I would think that, yeah, maybe it has some positive effects of it, but I just don't think that it has the benefits that many people claim it to have, because of the fact that you're probably eating your last meal around 6 p.m. or so, sometimes 7 p.m. And when are you going to bed? 10? And probably, I think that the protein is still digested there throughout the entire night and should give you plenty of amino acids then. That's at least my assumption.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it probably has more benefits when you're dieting. And I think probably just from maybe an adherence standpoint, as in it's not nice going to bed hungry or waking up hungry. So having casein before bed helps its adherence from that standpoint. And I guess also at least the feedings that you're having through the day, you're in a deficit. So you're having less carbs, less fat. So the digestion speed of all of that will be quicker. So I guess in a theoretical sense, I think it has more benefits there. Whereas when you're in a mass, like I don't know, actually, I like to have dinner sooner, but at the moment I'm having dinner at like 8, 9, going to bed at like 10:30, but it'll be nice to have dinner at like 7 or 8 and then going to bed. But I'm doing it as best I can, finish my protein, finish all my food by then. So I haven't got any more food coming in and just adding on top of each other going before bed, because in a mass phase, it's almost the opposite. If you have too much food and you're stuffed before bed, which is normally a problem in a mass phase or more likely to be, then that will disrupt your sleep. So yeah, I wouldn't put too many eggs in your basket into doing that and thinking that's like going to make a big difference. But I certainly think there are potentially some theoretical benefits to doing so. And yeah, you could, if you're going for the slow digestion route, you could have peanut butter with whey protein, and that's going to really slow down the whey protein. But casein is quite nice because Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, it's all thick. So if you are dieting, it's quite nice to have that, and it's lower calorie than adding fats to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my only perspective. And then he asked, if I win and get my pro card at Arnold's, can you, Revive Stronger, pay for me to come to London for the get together?
Mate, if you get your pro card and you're getting going to the Arnold's and you're a sponsored athlete and you're winning and all that kind of stuff, then fuck, you have enough money. So you should get us over to Australia then instead. So
yeah, that would be good. But yeah, if he was to go pro in his first season, that would be outstanding. He's doing classic and he's going to do bodybuilding as well, but he has a good classic shape, so should be interesting. Let's see if we've got any more supporter questions. No, I don't think we have, so I'll go to the top. Sorry guys. So Sean Dutton said, I was in hospital last week with bad cellulitis on IV antibiotics, struggled to get insufficient daily protein for those 5 days and won't be able to train for another week. Currently massing. Any advice to minimize further muscle loss and start gaining again? Much appreciated. Thanks for all your content as always. Kept me informed and amused while in hospital.
So first and foremost, hopefully you are recovering very, very quickly, Sean. Wish you all the best there. Other than that, when it comes to a hospital situation, you are in there due to an accident, due to a severe injury, or due to just sucking it up and go through surgery due to something. I'm just saying, like, okay, this is what you then have to accept. Suck it up there. Try to eat sufficient amount of protein. Once you're back, work your way back in again. Don't rush it, and then the muscle mass that you possibly lost then due to the downtime, or being absolutely sedentary, that will come back very quickly again. So that is the only advice I have, instead of doing stupid or irresponsible things, because this is exactly where I was like in 2016 to 2017, where I said to myself, I never want to experience or go through the hip surgery again. That's why I rather take my time now instead of then going through surgery again and go through the entire process once again, and by that wasting more time just because I was impatient.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect advice, is know that muscle memory is a real thing. It will come straight back as you get back into things, but don't rush it, because that will send you backwards rather than forward. So just like you would anytime, like you start a new mesocycle, you don't go balls to the wall after a deload. You go a bit light, you trickle yourself in, and just know like your volume requirements will be pitifully low when you start getting back into it, and you'll get like sore from absolutely nothing. So don't do a lot, and do leave many reps in reserve, and just give yourself time. So yeah, good advice. So Daniel Bright Bazak asked, do you think bodybuilding should be an Olympic sport?
No. To be honest, I already have a problem because so many things where judges are involved is already quite subjective. I think that bodybuilding is one of the most subjective sports there is. Also, secondarily, we would then have the issue of drug usage, which is still kind of a taboo topic when it comes to Olympics. I think that because everyone knows that so many athletes are doping, right? By now, even the Gen Pop knows that and makes fun of that, right? And especially when it comes to something like Olympic weightlifting. Holy shit, how many teams and countries have been banned over the past years is crazy, right? And they will always come up with new strategies to then pass like the tests. Instead of then re-evaluating and rethinking the entire thing, and maybe then introduce something like tested things as well, or untested categories as well, such as powerlifting. I think that would be the right move, but then we would face different moral and ethical questions then as well. So I think when it then comes to bodybuilding, people would still then, I think the problem would then arise that people would claim natural and compete in natural federations while them being on steroids or so. And then we have, once again, that problem about this differentiation and stuff like that. So I think that many things would be just too complicated and problematic, while at the same time, I do love bodybuilding. I think it has nothing to do in the Olympics, because yes, it requires discipline. Yes, it is hard to actually get to stage and stuff like that. But let's be real here. When we are comparing it with like Olympic disciplines, bodybuilding is actually quite easy.
Yeah, I don't know where I don't know if I don't really have much else to add. I don't see it. I just don't see it fitting in the Olympics. And I think just leave it where it is. I don't think it will do well as an Olympic sport. I don't know if that would help it be better. It could even make it a little bit worse than what it is. But yeah, I just, from the outset of the question, I don't see it being in the Olympics. And I think part of the issue there is the question of it, and I don't really care because people attach a lot of emotion to whether or not it's a sport. I don't care if people think it's a sport or not, but it's not the same. Like on stage, it's more of a, and people have said this, like a beauty pageant, and you don't have like beauty imagine, like, not to put, I don't know, it just feels, yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't want to say anything more on that.
No, I think you got a point there, because where do you put or set the difference then? I mean, what are the requirements then to get to the Olympics? I think that powerlifting would be much more suited to actually get there. And this is already, I think, at least like in 2015, 2016, people tried to actually make it an Olympic discipline, and that was already quite complicated. And why should then something like bodybuilding actually have or be allowed to participate or be a discipline in the Olympics? And once again, I mean, when you are genetically blessed, train for 4, 5, 6 years, take lots of insulin and growth hormone, and you are there, right? Whereas to become a true gold medalist in the Olympics, you probably have to start at the age of 4, 5 or so, and still be talented, right? We are not just speaking about such as in bodybuilding, genetically blessed and not blessed, right? But especially there, you have to be talented, and then you still have to train hard to actually make it to become a gold medalist and stuff like that. And I think that, not to discredit bodybuilding, but in it for itself, I mean, when you're genetically blessed, you can do a lot of things wrong and still become very, very successful in your field, right? This is what we always talk about. You can do so much stupid shit. When you are genetically blessed, you will probably get less injured than the other people and still get so much in return in regards to hypertrophy, right? Whereas building something like an incredible skill, there's something, for example, when it comes to the methodologies of the Chinese Olympic team or the Russian Olympic team, which is most often critically debated, because they have, like, I don't know, for something like Olympic weightlifting, 1,000 kids are then being put there because that is the only chance and the only hope for the parents and for the children then to become successful, right? And then it's just a survival of the fittest. They are just throwing everything at them all the time. And the ones who survived at the age of 15 are most of the time the genetic elite who just could and do everything. Everything is just like selection, like elite selection, what they are doing, all right? And when it then comes to stuff like this, I'm sure it could be done with bodybuilding as well, but bodybuilding doesn't require that amount of skills so many other Olympic disciplines require, such as just like, what is it called again? Gymnastics. Crazy. It's crazy, right? And it's not just being done with just the genetic elite there, but you have to have the work ethics to actually work your ass off for like 10, 15 years to actually get there, right? Once again, I'm not discrediting bodybuilding, but I think that bodybuilding, in comparison to so many other Olympic sports, is quite an easy sport.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I spoke to Mike about it recently, and at least I also know in Andrew Chappelle's research, and having spoken to AJ, because he went to Worlds and asked some questions, and I was to the athletes, and I asked him what were the like common themes, and one of them was training muscle groups once a week. And like that was for natural pros, and like from the research, from what we know, from like scientific standpoint, once a week can grow muscle, but it's probably not optimal for it. And it's like, is that because the genetic elite are still dominating the sport, and so they can get away with suboptimal training? And in future, as the sport grows in popularity, are we going to find that that's no longer, you need to be genetic elite and doing the smart shit? And then like it's going to be even harder for people like us to get anywhere. It's interesting. That's the logical step I would take, at least. It'll be interesting to see if that is how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a very good and interesting point you brought up there. Will it be not enough to just be genetically blessed in the future, because everyone is then who's participating there genetically blessed? Could very well be the case, right? And just because people are always, and we just recently talked about it with the genetics card, right? People are always like, yeah, genetics, yada, yada, yada. Genetics are always in play, and you always bring the genetics card. Yeah, and we then talked about a set of like, okay, genetics isn't a card, it's the entire deck, right? I mean, everything is impacted by your genetics. If you don't have good parents or good genetics,
good parents, I love that.
All right, you know what I mean. Then you can work your ass off, and the one who's genetically blessed, who's doing maybe just a normal amount of work, will still outperform you most of the time, right? So genetics is the entire deck. It's not just the card.
I guess you can. Well, like we said in that episode, we don't need to bang on about it. Scott Stevens talked about it, like that one guy who just was like outperforming all the other guys because he was just genetically blessed. But you think of someone incredibly popular in the UK, JP, Jordan Peters. He's huge, but would you say he's genetically blessed? Well, he doesn't, as far as I'm aware, he's not super competitive because he hasn't got the desirable shape and all the structure and everything. That's fucking genetics. And you'd argue he works harder than anyone, and he optimizes as many things as possible. It's like, but he doesn't quite get there, maybe because that genetic card is always holding him back slightly. I don't know. I don't want to talk for him, but it's just someone probably a lot of the listeners can at least relate to, or I guess someone like John Meadows, who it took him so long, and like he documented his progress and everything, and he worked his ass off, and it took him a long time to get anywhere. So
absolutely.
Time for another question?
Yeah, time for another question. We had 39 minutes, so plenty of time.
So we have Marcello Demetrio de Magales. I have no idea how to pronounce that last part.
We are always struggling with names, but that one was a hard one. Yeah.
So he says, during Christmas holidays, I'll be traveling from the 23rd until the 10th of January. around Europe with my family that is going to visit me in Germany. As I'm a Brazilian and I never have been abroad until last year, I want to enjoy different things with my family, but do plan to do at least body weight exercises during the week or go to the hotel gym if it's available during the time. How would you approach travel?
Like this. Also currently massing and of course enjoying those Christmas trees that Pascal told about on the podcast. So,
I missed the see more.
yeah. Marcello, that is a good idea to actually, especially when you're massing right now, try those treats. Especially, I mean, it's the same with London. I don't know what it is, but I do love the Christmas time in London, for example, or German Christmas markets. They can be nice. They can also be a total nightmare and disaster because sometimes it's just overly crowded and, how should I put it?
Tacky.
People like you and me are not usually going to all of those markets. Some markets are super nice. So last year we've been to a Japanese Christmas market, which was so interesting and so lovely made. And there's one in the Nikolaiviertel in Germany, or in Berlin rather, and that is like that classical center city, like old town, and you even have to pay to get in there, but it is worth it. It is absolutely a dream to get in there with the golden lights hanging around everywhere. It's just like that Christmassy feeling, right? So yeah, enjoy that time in Germany and enjoy the Christmas markets. Other than that, when it comes to traveling and also training, then I think that, I mean, if you have a gym available there, just do one major body part for each and every. Just do one exercise for each major body part, maybe twice, maybe 3 times per week if you have the time for it. And then you should be golden. I mean, don't really stress about it too much. What you then can use are time-saving things and strategies such as mile reps, supersets. Go closer to failure because you have, of course, you don't need to worry about something as systemic fatigue. You probably don't have access to heavy barbells and stuff like that. So it is absolutely all right to use it more like a metabolite style of training, going very close to failure, high repetition work, creating that pump environment, and then you should be golden, right? So yeah, I mean, it wasn't very specific now, but this is just something that you can probably create a workout with.
Yeah, for holiday and travel, I'm either planning it as a deload or as active recovery, which are kind of the same things. It just depends where it lands. Hopefully it lands appropriately as a deload, but if it doesn't and it's mid-mesocycle or something like that, it'll just be an active recovery week where it's just like kind of, I'm just maintaining everything through the week. And like you said, from whenever I've done it, myo reps are great because even body weight, they're perfect because the first set sucks because it's like you have to knock yourself out and it could be like 30, 40 reps or something. I don't know. It depends what you're doing. But after that, like you just short rest periods, you do another like 3-4 sets, you're done. That muscle group's had a great stimulus. And like you said, if you're going close to failure, it's not going to cause you, typically you wouldn't do that in a deload week or active recovery, but if you're just doing 2 full body sessions or whatever it might be, super low volume, you can even do like, I do lateral raises for like chairs, like you just pick them up, it's super easy. Curls with chairs.
Exactly.
Back is normally the one that it's difficult to do. I have to like find a table
when your hotel room has a desk, right? Put the desk like to an appropriate position so that you can do inverted rows there, for example.
That's what I would do.
I mean,
they actually get really tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did them. I was like, holy shit, this is hard. But yeah, press ups. Bulgarian split squats are a good one. Leg curls off the couch, like you just put one leg up. Yeah, it's actually very
body weight
easy.
Walking lunges. It's great. I mean, it's not. You can do it very, very long if you are not careful, but maybe take your back and fill it up with stuff so that you have an additional 10 or 20 kilograms on your frame, and then do walking lunges, stuff like that. You can get creative, but you even have the luxury of having a gym at the hotel. So having a couple of dumbbells there, and I mean, you can get very creative. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Just go in there and do something, right? Something. And even if it looks ridiculous to you, it's just for maybe 4 to 6 sessions for those 2.5 weeks.
And I know Jeff Alberts was in prep and he did like proper sessions with a water jug. We may have even spoken about it before. So if Jeff Alberts can do that in contest prep, you can get away with it. Not get away with it, but you don't need stress. So
cool.
So Kalin Tiku has asked, how much does eating close to bedtime affect your sleep quality, and what macro distribution you find best for a fast drop and good sleep?
So I have my thoughts on to that. The thing is, though, that I could be completely wrong because I was never in a lab to get my sleep quality tested. So I always had the feeling that when I'm eating something close to the bedtime, that just satiates me more. The postprandial period is a little bit more exaggerated and I can sleep better. But the thing is, it always then depends on the food composition. If you now were to eat high fiber content or high voluminous vegetable foods, pudding oats, something like that, I think it would be a little bit hard on you to then digest it through the night. And I could believe or imagine that the sleep quality is then negatively impacted because the body still has to do a lot of work. What I experienced in the past, the times when I binged, right? And I went to bed like this. I woke up next day and was totally exhausted because probably my body needed, or my digestion still needed to work so hard, right? And also at the same time, I was super gassy the next day. Super gassy. Probably also due to the sugary alcohols, but also probably because the food couldn't be digested that well throughout the night. And it just maybe created a lot of gas then, just lying around there. So I think you should be good with just more of a snack portion with something like cottage cheese, for example, a fast digesting carbohydrate source maybe, and nothing that makes you too warm and hot for the night as well. Something that you need to watch out for, because when Steve is gaining or I am gaining or other people are gaining, most of the time they are getting boiling hot when they're eating a lot of carbohydrates. That applies to me. I was always like, holy shit, I need to have that fan on me. So really watch out and be cautious with the food choices. But if you pick the right ones, I think that it even could enhance your sleep quality. Well, once again, take it with a little bit of pinch of salt here, because it could very well be that it has detrimental outcomes, even though that it feels like that you are sleeping deep. It's the same with alcohol, right? Yeah. You have the perception that you're sleeping deep, but the sleep quality is actually quite shitty, right? And maybe it's the same there, because I was never in a lab for my testing of my sleep quality when I did it. So it could very well be that it is a false perception.
Yeah, it's funny because people say like, I'm having a nightcap, and it's like, yeah, it will help you get sleep, but your quality will be terrible. Yeah. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And I don't think there's been any, like, the difficult thing is the research is not on our population. So it's always difficult. Like, it's not on like dieting bodybuilders or people like dieting necessarily. It's just like, I don't know what they're even eating in these studies, but from what the research shows, it's avoiding large meals before bed. And like you said, there's particularly ones that are putting stress on the digestive tract. And I've heard people who are into like chrononutrition talking about food as it's like stimulative. So it's almost like when you eat, it kind of awakens you a bit and it stimulates the body. So it's a good idea to not have too much before bed. So yeah, I think basically what you said, and trial it. Like, keep a note of your kind of when you wake up, how do you feel versus like having a light snack versus a heavy meal. See what ones correlate with your best kind of feeling the next day, as long as every other factor in your life is staying somewhat level and you can kind of work out for yourself. I know for me personally, when I'm gaining, that's when I need to be careful about making sure not to have too much before bed. Like I said, it kind of, like I eat and then it just is on, like is in my stomach and adding up to itself. Whereas when I'm in a cutting phase, I know what I had in my my last contest prep was like, it was a small amount of oats that I would cook and then I'd cool, and then I'd put those in the fridge, and then I'd top it with casein like as a pudding, and that was like the icing, and then I'd eat that. And that was maybe, I don't know, 200 calories, 250 calories. And that was just like, I don't know, psychologically it allowed me to adhere to the diet much better. And I just liked having that before bed. And that's such a small amount of food. I'm very doubtful that it's ever going to have a huge negative impact on your sleep. So, but yeah, that's just my own personal experience. So Chris Beita, I don't actually know how to pronounce that. He asked 5 tips for people to utilize near the holidays to avoid diet mayhem. overeating, binging, and such.
Yeah.
5.
So I think you've even written an article about that at some point, didn't you?
I probably have when I was in my more
2015,
generic,
2016 or so, right?
generic
So
fitness
one thing
content.
I've done with a lot of my clients is not just in the past, but also here this upcoming year is planning in a maintenance phase, but not with the first week and a diet break on the holidays. Because if you have been dieting for a very long time, so tip number 1, don't have dieted for a long time and take that as a diet break, because you are highly susceptible to palatable food and also your environment. And if your environment is then palatable food and also a good social environment, then there is a high likelihood that you're overeating. The studies have shown that the social environment leads to us eating more calories, or can lead to us eating more calories. When you are then also in a dieted state, the likelihood is even more increased, right? So set yourself up for that one. If you're taking a diet break, maybe plan it like this, that at the beginning, it's not holiday season, but towards the end of the diet break, so that you have already had a couple of days of a higher caloric intake, so that you're not as susceptible to overeating anymore, not as ravenous anymore. And this is something that many people experience, and myself included, that when I take like refeed days or diet breaks, I get more hungry. And this is something that you have to figure out for yourself, whether you are a person like that as well. So these kind of things. Then second of all, I would say then plan the days out. So what you could do is incorporate things such as intermittent fasting for the first half of the day, then eat something that is more so dieting food, such as have a salad with a protein source so that you're saving up calories for those for the Christmas, for example, or for Thanksgiving, for example, or for the Christmas holidays, where you know that you're going to eat a little bit more, or where you want to have a little bit more flexibility. Same goes then for the days prior to that, and maybe after that as well. Save up maybe 100 or 200 calories. What I like doing is I allowed some of my clients, not all of my clients, to borrow calories from other days. But I have some requirements, and that is so that they are not going just wild and crazy on that. I limit it to a maximum of 2 days and a maximum of 20% from each of those 2 days. That can be a lot of calories already. What I want to avoid with that is that they are then fasting one day, saving all the calories for the next day, and then just go on a massive binge or so, right? Or just rampage calories. This is something that I want to avoid. So these were a couple of tips. Maybe you have like more on those, Steve.
I just Googled for the article, and I have calories don't count at Christmas. And it starts off with, oh, the weather outside is frightful and the food is so delightful. And since we've got no abs to show, let the food flow, let the training go. Look at my belt buckles about to blow. This is back in my the days I would write. So I think you tallied off a few of the ones that I mentioned in this. The first one I mentioned was like, it's Christmas time, chill out. Something I think is useful to think about is like any of these, like your birthday, Halloween, Christmas. If you're anyone listening to this podcast, 90% of the year, if not more of that, you're on point. So if you're not on point for a single day, it's like we talk about with our approach to dieting, it's like flexible dieting. If you're not on point for one single day or whatever it might be, don't kind of go, fuck it, I'm going to be off for like a whole week. Just get back to it the next day. I said just being mindful. So being mindful around Christmas time, maybe you pick and choose a few events, Christmas parties that you're going to go to, that you're going to go all out on. And then the other ones you kind of keep and you stay steady. Like you said, actually, you could fluctuate your calories somewhat, having more calories on some days, less on other days. I said, yeah, that was kind of being selective, being flexible. I said I had an eat this, not eat that on Christmas. I can't remember what it is. It's like eat turkey, eat your turkey, your veggies, eat that first, and you'll probably fill yourself up quite a lot before then dessert comes around. And,
oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
drink
some water.
Yeah,
fine.
Alcohol. If you're going to drink alcohol, like it gets out of hand. So you could stick to like gin and slimline tonic rather than having like, I don't know, rum and full fat Coke or something, or like tons of beer and wine that can get out of control quite quickly. And yeah, I think I said it's not all about the calories and the food. Like you said, being in a social environment can make you overeat, but I think also being in a social environment, you can focus more on the people, the enjoyment of kind of the time and the dancing and the conversation, and not be obsessed. And I think helping yourself there, like you said, rather than going into Christmas and being like, oh, today's my refeed, it's Christmas Day, be like, have had a good solid week or at least a few days of eating higher food, letting some of those kind of hunger signals kind of settle a little bit. So maybe your leptin's a bit higher, your ghrelin's a bit settled, you're not so food focused. So when you come to Christmas Day, you're like, oh, I've already eaten quite a decent amount the last few days, I'm not kind of ravenous. You see people do this where they like save all their calories. You can sit in a day, they save it all for one meal, or they save it all for like one day of the week, and they just end up going way overboard. So I think being too proactive can shoot you in the foot, and you can be a bit more kind of set yourself up for success in that regard.
Also, just a couple of things I wanted to bring up as what I always tell my clients. You are an adult and you want to be treated as an adult, so act like one, right? Only kids eat like completely emotionally, right? Like, I want cornflakes, for example, right? And there's no rationality to that. It's just like they go and act on their emotions. And that is implying all the adults, we have the luxury of being able to also make rational decisions. And also, even though that we want or are drawn to something, can rationally say like, okay, this is not the best idea, or make other choices that then are a compromise for yourself. So you probably know that eating the entire cake is probably not the best idea. If you want to have a piece of cake, totally fine, go ahead, but act as an adult and not take the entire cake, right? Same goes then for just studies have shown that most people gain most of the weight over the holiday season, over the entire year or over the entire years, right? So the Gen Pop is eating mostly intuitively. They don't know any better. They are not very well educated, such as most of our audiences, on macro tracking, on nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And they are eating somewhat intuitively throughout the entire year. And then that works all right most of the time. But when then holiday season comes around, they are going like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 calories above their maintenance. And all of a sudden, they're 1 kilogram up. Add that over the next 5 years, they are 5 kilograms up without any kind of muscle tissue gain or so, right? So for us, it is a little bit of a different piece, but what I wanted to say with that is you're not gaining or you're not getting fat over the Christmas holiday. Where you're gaining fat or getting fat is over the entirety of the entire year. If you're worrying about 3 days of Christmas, for example, then you fucked up somewhere else most of the time. All right. So, I just wanted to bring that up as well, that these holidays shouldn't be or cause any kind of anxiety, even if you're overeating. That shouldn't be the entire reason for you being off track or looking shit or being fat or so. If that's the case and you are trying to blame the holidays for that, that is most likely not true. Other days are, or other weeks are, other habits are that are then being repeated throughout the entire year.
I'm now waiting. I'm waiting for those memes that are going to be like, it's Jon Snow going like, winter is coming, and it's going to be like the fit pros talking about Christmas is coming, and we're going to get all those posts where it's like you have an eating disorder if you track or like care about your food intake over Christmas. You should just eat whatever you want and don't train. And then it's the other people who are like, no, you'll get fat over Christmas if you do all this. It's like, oh, everyone knows surely it's the middle ground of this, and like you can't have one way for one person. It's
like the Game Changers documentary.
Oh yeah,
everyone was making an article about that. Everyone.
And aren't both of us? Yeah, because I've already had a few people ask me, am I dieting? So they asked me, what am I doing, like competing next year? And they're like, so you're dieting over Christmas? I'm like, oh shit, I am.
Yeah.
Which for me actually might be a little bit complicated because I might be at Charlotte's for Christmas. It's a little bit awkward probably if I'm trying to properly diet when I'm doing that. And I refuse food.
Yeah, I would still have something from the Christmas dinner and not like in a restrictive kind of fashion. Because once again, you can plan for that. And what are 3 days? out of the entirety of the dieting phase? Nothing really, right? If you're not going like 5,000 calories and you destroy like weeks of progress that you've made. And once again, that brings me back to the topic about acting like an adult, just knowing what your priorities and goals are, and aligning that also with your social environment or your entire life. And that doesn't mean you can participate at social events. You don't have to stand in the corner or be the guy who's the weirdo who brings the Tupperware or something like that, right? You can still participate. You can let people know that you have that goal if they are asking, right? And if not, you can still eat this meal. Maybe go for just the lean meat sauce. Don't add all the fatty sauce. Go more so with the vegetables rather than all the starchy carbs or so, and fill up your plate. Things like that. And then you're still participating. You are not looking like a weirdo because you're saying like, no, I can't eat that, because that's not true, right? You still can eat that. It's just like, okay, what are your preferences? What are your priorities? And then make it work, because most of the time it is, and you can make it work. And I think that so many things can still go hand in hand with another. You can still go out, eat an ice cream with your kid if you want to during a contest prep. You maybe have to make a trade-off here and there, right? If it's really important to get an ice cream with your kid, do it, right? And cut like 100 calories another day.
Yeah, I think it's not like you're doing it. The problem, I think, with those things happen when it's happening all the time, but it's not. It might suck a little bit one day. Like I think I was maybe 4 weeks out or something like that for a wedding I went to with Charlotte last time I competed. And like I felt pretty tired, and like I was a bit like I certainly wasn't as full of energy as I might have been if I was eating like all the food, but I still had I had like a chicken burger. I had a protein bars in my pocket. I drank Pepsi Max. Like I was still there and present, and people were still speaking to me, and they were kind of like, "Oh my God, you're so dedicated." I hate it when people are like, "You're dedicated." I'm like, it's not dedication. It's just like, this is just me. This is what I do. They're like, I could never do that. I'm like, you could not eat that cheese and biscuits right now. Like
Kay's family, they always make fun of me and say like, "Can you even eat this?"
Yeah.
Right? My typical response is, I can eat everything I want.
But I don't want to eat your food.
But it is what I mean. There's some truth to that, right?
Yeah,
when I decide to want to eat that, I could easily do that, but that always then comes once again, probably with a trade-off or with possible consequences that I then need to take care of. And I know where people are or why people are stressing out, and that is something that I've gone through myself in the past. And most of the time, it is a lack of experience and a lack of knowledge. And this is not meant in an offensive way. This is more so meant in a good way, because once you are going through these situations and you're realizing, even if you are relaxing a little bit more and eating a little bit more, you realize, holy shit, I'm not dead, first and foremost. And second of all, the world is still spinning. And thirdly, hey, it wasn't that bad. I may be not losing, 0.7% of body weight this week, but more so 0.5. But hey, come on. I mean, you traded it for a good experience and a good time with your loved ones.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. On that note, where will you be for Christmas? Are you going to be with her family or?
Yeah. My family, I mean, it's fucked up. So yeah, what can I say? I could go on a tangent here and talking about my family, but it's not worth talking about. Let's put it that way. And that, I know it sounds sad, but it is what it is. And my family isn't aren't my parents, isn't my sister or so. My family is Katie, Hugo, and Tony, and of course, then her family is also kind of my family, even if it's more like strangers. But it's not like my blood family, and that's why I'm spending Christmas with her.
Cool. Yeah, I think this might be the first year that I'm not with my family.
Oh, really?
It might be the first year, and I'm partly doing it
growing up, Steve.
growing up, and I'm partly doing it because I really want to see Ada meet Freddie, which is their dog.
Okay.
Because they're just, when they meet, it's just I don't know how it's going to go down, and they're going to live together for like a week, and it's going to be like Freddie's a male Jack Russell, so they're both they're like the same dog, almost. Crazy. So Ada's a soft touch, so she'll probably get bullied, but I think Freddie's a bit of a wuss as well. So
cool. No, we are now at 1 hour and 5 minutes, so I think that it's about time to end it here.
We don't have anything particularly to shout out, I don't think, apart from we're very excited because we've been talking about Christmas, and one of Elias brought it up in his update today, how he's excited for our get-together. That is coming very soon.
Yeah, in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, super quick.
Christmas get-together with all of our athletes. Not all of them, but many athletes. Yeah. How many people will we be? 40 or so?
Even know.
It's crazy. Like people flying in from LA over to London just to participate, and it's going to be amazing. I mean, this is what Revive has become now over the past couple of years. And I just love it to see then also, and to meet some of those people for the first time in our life, and then also to catch up with other people that you also know already since a couple of years now. It's going to be amazing. And man, I mean, if you guys want to be part of it, you know where to apply. Head onto our website and sign up here today, and you could possibly still participate at the Christmas dinner.
And any clients who are watching who aren't aware of it, now you are. So you better be there.
7th and 8th of December in London.
And no stragglers turn up, please.
Cool.
So, we'll leave it there. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.